In 2004, California attempted to kill a rifle with a piece of paper. The state legislature banned the .50 BMG. They called it a threat to public safety. Ronnie Barrett didn't hire lobbyists. He sent a letter. He refused to sell a single bolt to any California government agency. He refused to service their existing rifles. One official letterhead arrived with a state seal. Barrett ignored it. He cut off the police and the tactical teams. The marking on the shipping crates was clear: not for sale to California government agencies. Barrett moved to the drafting table. He took the massive .50 BMG casing. He began the neck-down process. The brass was heated and reshaped at the throat. He fitted a slightly smaller bullet into the narrowed opening. The result was the 416 Barrett. The projectile was lighter. It moved faster. It stayed supersonic longer than the .50 caliber original. Physically, the rifle was legal. Technically, it was more lethal. The engineering slap in the face worked. Lawmakers banned the number, but Barrett sold a result. While the legal war raged, the military shifted its focus. Snipers needed precision, not just raw power. Snipers are now moving to the Mk-22. It uses the .338 Norma Magnum. Chris Barrett, Ronnie's son, designed this multi-caliber system. The M107 is losing its sniper status. The military is pushing the .50 caliber back to its roots. It is no longer a tool for surgical strikes. It is a dedicated anti-materiel weapon for destroying engines and radar dishes. Chris and Ronnie Barrett became the first father-son duo to have their designs adopted by the Pentagon. They beat the California ban by changing the shape of a brass shell. Barrett developed the 416 cartridge specifically to circumvent the law. $10 billion in damages. This was the price Mexico demanded from American gunmakers in 2021. The lawsuit targeted 10 manufacturers, including Barrett. The reason? A total collapse of the domestic balance of power. While Barrett bypasses California's laws with engineering, his invention is dismantling a neighboring state through the straw purchase system. Why does an entire national police force lose to a single gun store? Because body armor does not stop this caliber. The process is a clean industrial pipeline. A United States citizen with a blank criminal record enters a gun store. They pay $8,000 to $10,000. The transaction is legal. In a quiet alley or a parking lot, the rifle changes hands. Operatives file off the serial numbers. They strip the weapon down. The parts cross the border in separate crates. Back in the States, the original buyer reports a theft. The rifle is now a ghost. In Mexico, the M82 became a cultural titan. The band Caliber 50 rose to fame, naming themselves after the bullet that reshaped their streets. Their songs blared from armored SUVs, mixing with the frantic static of police radio intercepts. The tactical reality was a massacre. Cartel gunmen used the Barrett to hunt from the shadows. One shot. A police helicopter turbines shatter. Another shot. An armored transport becomes a coffin. The military remained the only force capable of standing ground. Local police were obsolete. The Mexican government's filing was blunt. They claimed Barrett knew their distributors were feeding the cartels. The $10 billion claim exceeded the annual budget of the entire Mexican police force. It was a desperate attempt to sue a weapon out of existence. In 2022, a district judge dismissed the case. What the cartels did to police cars, Marine Steve Reichert did to a brick building in Iraq. Military pricing for the .50 caliber is a cold bargain. One round costs between $75 and $100. For that price, physics replaces luck. In April 2004, Reichert climbed an abandoned oil storage tank. Through the glass, he saw an IED hidden inside a dead animal carcass. An ambush followed. Insurgents opened fire with RPGs and machine guns. The target was 1,600 meters away, exactly 1 mile of desert air. Reichert adjusted for wind. He compensated for elevation. The first shot was a warning. The second shot was a kill. 3 insurgents retreated. They climbed stairs behind a brick wall. They thought the masonry was cover. It was an illusion. Reichert loaded the Raufoss rounds. These are not simple bullets. They are technical instruments of penetration. The sniper aimed at a blank wall. He estimated the position of the bodies behind the brick. He pulled the trigger. A cloud of red brick dust erupted from the surface. Then came the change. The .50 caliber turned solid barriers into secondary shrapnel. Behind the wall, Reichert saw red splashes. He continued to fire through the structure. Over 13 hours of combat, he killed 9 insurgents. He never saw their faces. He only saw the effect. Reichert received the Bronze Star for the engagement. Behind the bricks, only red stains remained. The red splatter Reichert witnessed has a specific name in ballistics. Experts call it pink mist. It is the visual signature of .50 BMG hitting soft tissue. The physics are surgical. A 60-gram projectile travels at 800 meters per second. Upon impact, the kinetic energy creates a temporary cavity. Flesh compresses, then expands violently. The pressure wave liquefies internal organs before the bullet even exits. How large is the exit wound? Usually the size of a grapefruit. During Desert Storm, the reality of this power became undeniable. Standard infantry protection is useless here. A level 4 ceramic plate stops a .30-06 armor-piercing round. Against a Barrett, that same plate acts as additional shrapnel. The military eventually developed specialized plates for helicopter pilots. They are 1 inch thick. They weigh 10 pounds each. For an infantryman on the move, they are a physical impossibility. Even if the armor holds, the physics do not change. The energy transfer remains catastrophic. The impact shatters ribs like glass and ruptures the vascular system instantly. The Marine Corps analyzed the data from the Gulf. They ordered 400 additional rifles throughout the 1990s. Barrett refined the system. New variants arrived, optimized for Raufo's armor-piercing incendiary ammunition. The weapon evolved. In the heat of combat, the barrier between a target and a kill disappeared. Kinetic energy simply turned into total destruction. In 2017, the record hit 3,500 meters. But the foundation of this kill list was laid a decade earlier. While civilians measured inches, military operators began calculating kilometers. The shooter no longer sees a face. He sees a math problem: gravity, wind, curvature of the earth. In January 2008, Army Specialist Nicholas Randstad woke up at Checkpoint Delta, Afghanistan. His spotter pointed to 4 Taliban fighters at 2,100 meters. This was beyond the scope's mechanical limits. Randstad held the crosshairs high in the empty air, aiming at nothing to hit something. 1 shot, 1 kill. It became the longest recorded American sniper hit in the country. Does the shooter feel the recoil before the target dies? Not at these distances. In April 2112, 2 Australian teams from the 2nd Commando Regiment took positions in Helmand Province. Their target was a Taliban commander. The distance, 2,800 meters, 35 football fields in a straight line. They pulled the triggers. The bullet spent 6 seconds in flight, 6 seconds of autonomy. In that window, the target can walk, sit, or light a cigarette. He is already dead, but the physics haven't reached him yet. Both teams used Barrett M82A1 rifles. GPS and 3 spotters confirmed the hit, but the extreme distance erased the individual. No one knows which sniper fired the fatal shot. The record stood for 5 years, 2,800 meters. The Barrett M82 variants hold the records. But even a weapon of this caliber requires technical support, like a common office printer. Tennessee, a quiet room. Don Cook, a Marine Corps veteran, sits at his desk in the Barrett Customer Service Department. The phone rings. Cook picks up the receiver and hears the roar of a battlefield 11,000 kilometers away. Static, shouting, the rhythmic crack of machine gun fire through the speaker. A Marine unit in Afghanistan is pinned down. Their M107 is dead. The previous night, during maintenance in the dark, they accidentally bent the ears of the lower receiver. Now, in the middle of an active firefight, the rifle is a heavy piece of useless steel. Cook listens to the distorted screams and the percussion of incoming rounds. He does not see the weapon. He does not see the dirt. He diagnoses the failure by voice alone. "Use the bolt carrier," Cook says calmly. He instructs them to use the heavy steel component as a lever to bend the ears back into alignment. The Marines follow the instructions. Metal grinds against metal. A few minutes pass. The action cycles. The rifle is operational. "Thank you very much for the help," a voice shouts over the gunfire. The line goes dead. The Marines return to the engagement. The M107 requires specialized maintenance, but its targets require the Rofus Mark 211. This is not a bullet. It is a miniaturized artillery shell. What lies beneath the green tip with its signature gray ring? 3 components of death compressed into a single .50 caliber casing. The engineering is surgical. A tungsten carbide core acts as the primary penetrator. Zirconium powder provides the incendiary flash. A high explosive charge completes the sequence. The Rofus does not simply hit, it performs a 3-stage execution. Impact triggers the armor-piercing core. The round punches through 11 millimeters of rolled homogeneous armor from a distance of 1,000 meters. 30 centimeters after penetration, the internal charge detonates. It ignites fuel and shatters internal components simultaneously. The cost of this precision is high. One single round costs $100 at standard military pricing. In the regions where the M107 operates, that $100 trigger pull equals the monthly salary of an entire enemy infantry squad. One shot costs $100. $100 per trigger pull became a line item in a government ledger. In the summer of 2002, the Pentagon ended the rifle's trial period. The United States Army formally adopted the weapon. Its bureaucratic designation, M107 Long-Range Sniper Rifle. The military demanded refinement. They stripped the steel. Engineers replaced it with titanium. They added a hydraulic buffer and a suppressor-ready muzzle brake. Weight dropped to 27 pounds. The weapon became lighter, quieter, and more lethal. Bureaucracy then turned to the ammunition. The inventory resembled a supermarket of destruction. Visual: a silver bullet tip rests on a stamped military manifest. The selection started with the M33 ball round, a simple copper tip, effective only against unarmored flesh. Next, the M903 slap, saboted light armor penetrator. A subcaliber tungsten dart sits inside a plastic sabot. Upon firing, the plastic peels away. The tungsten core accelerates to extreme velocities. It pierces heavy plating at distances where other rifles fail. The catalog expanded further. M1 incendiary rounds for fuel tanks. M8 armor-piercing incendiary for hardened targets. Finally, the silver-tipped specialty rounds. These carry a hardened steel core and a chemical compound. On impact, the incendiary mix flashes at white-hot temperatures. The silver-tipped incendiary rounds were only the beginning. Every specialized projectile, from the M33 to the MK211, traces its lineage back to a single frantic contract. The garage workshop was about to become a global forge. 1989. Sweden makes the first move. They order 100 rifles, legitimizing a basement invention as a military standard. Then, August 2, 1990, Iraqi T-72s cross the Kuwaiti border. The world's 4th largest army occupies the desert. The Pentagon needs a countermeasure that doesn't require a tank. The U.S. Marine Corps places an urgent order: 125 M82A1 rifles. Barrett's workforce consists of exactly 10 employees. They operate out of a small building behind his house. 10 people against a million-man army. The lights never go out. They work around the clock, machining steel while the coalition assembles in the sand. Operation Desert Storm begins. The rifle makes its combat debut. It isn't a sniper tool. It is a portable artillery piece. Marines bypass heavy Bushmaster chain guns and expensive anti-tank missiles. They engage technicals and BMPs at 2,000 yards. The sound of impact is unmistakable. A single shot hits a pile of unexploded ordnance. A 155mm howitzer shell, thick steel designed to withstand internal pressure, shatters and detonates. Norwegian EOD teams stop disarming mines by hand. They simply pull a trigger from a kilometer away. One man in a ghillie suit now possesses the destructive power of a strike aircraft. The The U.S. Marine Corps received their first shipment of 125. The transition from a garage prototype to a battlefield icon began with a financial catastrophe. Ronnie Barrett's vision was simple: a semi-automatic rifle chambered in 50 BMG, portable by a single soldier. The first designation followed the completion date in 1982, the M82. Construction began in a small workshop. 10 employees labored for 9 months to build the first 30 rifles. The economics were a disaster. Each unit cost $8,000 to manufacture. Barrett sold them for $2,300. He lost $5,700 on every rifle. The second batch was no better. The price rose to $3,700, but the red ink remained. How does a failing startup survive such a deficit? The answer arrived through a magazine ad. The CIA spotted the M82 in Shotgun News. They needed a weapon for the Afghan Mujahideen. The Mujahideen were fighting a superpower. Soviet Hind helicopters dominated the valleys. Conventional small arms couldn't touch them. The agency placed the order. They never publicly admitted the transaction, but in the mountains of Afghanistan, the M82 found its purpose. It wasn't just a sniper rifle, it was an anti-materiel tool. The steel core rounds shredded engine blocks. They punctured fuel tanks. One man could now ground a multi-million-dollar aircraft. Efficiency finally met demand during the third production run. Barrett moved from the verge of bankruptcy to the center of global proxy wars. He proved that his rifle could dismantle the machinery of a modern empire. The CIA ordered 30 rifles. The CIA order was a turning point, but the weapon itself remained a mechanical nightmare. Early prototypes malfunctioned constantly. The stock was prone to failure, yet the rifle fired. Barrett's core breakthrough centered on a short recoil semi-automatic system. Most experts deemed the physics impossible for a shoulder-fired weapon. Barrett ignored them. How do you tame the power of a half-inch projectile? The answer lay in managed kinetic energy. Upon firing, the barrel recoils backward approximately 1 inch while locked to the bolt. This movement absorbs the initial explosion. An accelerator arm then slams the energy from the barrel into the bolt. A curved cam track unlocks the mechanism, extracts the spent brass, and strips a fresh round from a 10-round steel magazine. The barrel wasn't the only solution. Barrett added a massive dual-chamber muzzle brake. It vents high-pressure exhaust gases to the left and right. This single component reduces felt recoil by 70%. Heavy buffer springs and a thick recoil pad absorb the remaining shock. The rifle's sheer weight serves a purpose. It anchors the weapon against the shoulder. Research suggests the final impact feels comparable to a 12-gauge shotgun. Through relentless trial and error, Barrett solved the equation. He created a semi-automatic rifle chambered in 50 BMG that a single infantryman could carry. 84 pounds of steel and lead. That was the weight of a traditional 50 caliber machine gun. To fire it, you needed a tripod, sandbags, and a crew. It was a stationary beast. Someone had to make it portable. In 1982, that someone appeared. His name was Ronnie Barrett. He was a professional photographer. He had zero engineering background. He had no formal training. He just liked guns and a challenge. The shift happened at Percy Priest Lake. Barrett arrived to photograph a patrol boat prototype. On the deck sat 2 M2 Browning machine guns. Barrett looked at the heavy barrels and the massive receivers. He saw a rifle where others saw a crew-served weapon. Barrett told a friend he wanted to build a bolt-action 50 caliber. The friend laughed. He said the real trick was making it semi-automatic. Barrett accepted the challenge immediately. Why did a photographer think he could succeed where major arms manufacturers failed? He didn't know the rules, so he didn't know he was supposed to fail. He began drawing. No CAD software, no blueprints. He used hand sketches on sheets of newsprint. He took these drawings to local machine shops. The experts turned him down. They told him if the idea worked, someone smarter would have done it already. Barrett didn't stop. He found a few local machinists willing to take a risk. They moved into a gravel floor garage. They worked for 4 months straight. The result was a prototype machined from heavy steel bar stock. It weighed nearly 50 pounds. It jammed. It leaked gas. It malfunctioned constantly. But when Barrett pulled the trigger, it cycled. The prototype fired its first round in less than 120 days. The prototype cycled. Barrett proved the mechanism worked. Now, the weapon needed to master its fuel, the 12.7 by 99 mm NATO cartridge. Engineers call it the .50 BMG. Its bullet weighs 650 grains. That is 12 times the mass of a standard 5.56 round. At the muzzle, it generates 15,000 foot-pounds of energy. A typical .30-06 rifle produces barely 3,000. This round was not for hunting. It was for punching through aircraft skin, concrete, and steel engine blocks. Did anyone think a single soldier could fire this? Until 1982, the answer was no. The cartridge belonged to the M2 Browning machine gun, a weapon weighing 84 pounds. It required a tripod, sandbags, and a crew. It was a stationary hammer, not a sniper's tool. But Gunnery Sergeant Carlos Hathcock saw a different potential. In 1967, in the jungles of Vietnam, the Marine legend mounted an 8-power uninertal scope to a heavy Browning. He spotted a Viet Cong guerrilla a mile and a half away. 2,500 yards of humid air and gravity. Hathcock pulled the trigger. The first round destroyed the guerrilla's bicycle. The target stood up in shock. The second round struck him center mass. It was the longest confirmed kill in history. The record stood for 35 years. Hathcock proved the .50 caliber possessed surgical precision at extreme ranges. But the hardware remained a heavy, immobile relic of the Great War. Ronnie Barrett knew the ballistics were perfect. He only had to solve the weight. He aimed to shrink an 84-pound machine gun into a rifle one man could carry into the woods. The task required cutting the weapon's total mass by nearly 70%. The Barrett 50 caliber, one of the most powerful sniper rifles ever engineered. Its reputation is built on long-range precision and raw kinetic energy. But the path from a workshop prototype to a global symbol of destruction contains chapters rarely discussed in public. To understand the weapon, you must first understand the round that defines it. The cartridge predates the rifle by 65 years. It began in 1917. Standard rifle rounds were failing. Armored planes and tanks had entered the battlefield, and steel plates shrugged off ordinary lead. The military needed a solution that could punch through industrial-grade protection. Did John Browning realize he was creating a century-long legacy? Not likely. He simply scaled up his .30-06 design. The result was the .50 BMG, the Browning machine gun cartridge. This massive round required a massive delivery system. Browning delivered the M2 heavy machine gun. Soldiers called it Ma Deuce. It weighed 84 pounds without the tripod. It was a crew-served weapon, designed for fixed positions or heavy vehicles. For decades, the .50 caliber remained bolted to tanks and patrol boats. But the ballistics were too perfect to ignore. The projectile could travel 5 miles. It carried enough energy to disable an engine block at a distance of over 1,000 yards. The power was there, but the portability was non-existent. In 1982, Ronnie Barrett saw the gap. He watched 2 M2 machine guns firing from a patrol boat and had a singular realization. The most powerful round in the world was trapped inside a weapon too heavy for a single man to carry. He decided to build a shoulder-fired platform for the 12.7 mm cartridge.